Absolutely fantastic weekend of college football coming up, and in this video we are breaking down Oregon at Penn State and Alabama at Georgia. Two previews, one video. We've got best bets for both, and I'll have you know, another 2-0 week for Josie last week. She's now 8-0 on the season in these video picks, so for the love of God, stick around for that. We'll be talking about the Penn State whiteout, of which they've won 6 straight, by the way. The Drew Allar, Dante Moore matchup. Does Kalen DeBoer survive if Bama gets destroyed this weekend? And of course, tons more. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. Welcome to Oddshark Ninja, here with our college football betting analyst, Josie Costigan. Find me a better record than hers to start the season. Furthermore, 7-0 with all of her picks in week 4 as well. So make sure you hit up oddshark.com and check out her written work as well. So Josie, let's start with Oregon at Penn State. It is whiteout night at Penn State. What does this atmosphere mean for this Nittany Lions football team?
Oh, I get so excited for whiteout week. It's so exciting. But it's been a real edge for Penn State, especially from a betting perspective. Fun fact, James Franklin's first win over a ranked opponent came in a whiteout back in 2016, that famous Block 6 game against Ohio State. So since then, it's kind of just taken on a life of its own. Penn State's 8-1 straight up and against the spread in its last 9 whiteouts. Right now, they're on a 5-0 run in these games when they're favored by more than 5 points. So, yeah, it's a real edge for them. I think they're excited for this one.
And we'll get into best bets here in a moment. 3.5, the number here with the Nittany Lions favorite as we sit here on a Wednesday. If I have one issue with this matchup, Josie, and the idea of betting this game, it's that I don't know who either of these teams are quite yet. Now, Oregon has wins over Montana State and Oklahoma State, a team that just fired Mike Gundy, Northwestern, and at the very least, a Civil War win, although that Oregon State team is quite terrible. On the other hand, Penn State wins over Nevada, FIU, Villanova. Do these resumes, Josie, coming into week 5 scare you a little bit?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like, do we actually know how good either of these teams are? You know, on paper, the numbers look amazing. Oregon winning by like 40 points a game, Penn State about 34. But then, like, you get a closer look at who they played, and it's like really hard to get a read. Neither has faced a ranked opponent or an offense averaging more than 18 points, so scary. Dante Moore, put up good numbers, but best defense he's seen is Northwestern, and they still rank in the bottom half nationally, so that's nothing really to brag about. And again, Penn State's defense looks like they're the best in the country, 5.5 points allowed, but toughest offense was FIU. So yeah, they both looked great, but against really soft schedules, I don't really think we're going to know who either are until they line up against each other on Saturday.
These two did play in the Big Ten championship game last year, a game that Oregon won, and obviously a number of different faces on either side here. Dylan Gabriel, fantastic in that game, for example. But can we take anything away from that one and use it to our advantage in handicapping this one?
I'm not sure how much it really tells us. Maybe more so for Penn State. It's kind of the same crew. Drew Allar at the helm, the backfield of Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, who, ran over Oregon for almost 230 yards in that game. They've already piled up over 450 combined, 8 scores. So, that part of the identity is still there. Oregon, though, like you said, totally different team. Gabriel, Tez Johnson, Jordan James, they're all gone. And even the defense kind of looks brand new. So we don't really know what Penn State looks like against this Oregon squad. But what we do know is that their run game has held up under pressure, especially under the bright Big Ten lights. So I think that's something you can probably count on again, and the only thing you can really reflect on.
You talked about the quarterbacks a little bit there. I think it's going to be a big matchup in this one. Dante Moore sort of getting his first real run at Oregon after transferring from UCLA a couple years ago. And of course, like you mentioned, Penn State has Drew Allar under center there. What do you make of the quarterback matchup in this one?
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of interesting because it almost feels flipped to me. Like Dante Moore has been steadier, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, has come against some pretty soft defenses. Drew Allar, on the other hand, he kind of really hasn't been flashy, just like 4 touchdowns through 3 games. But he doesn't have to carry it all. Penn State leans on that veteran backfield to kind of set the tone. So Allar just has to manage the game, make the right throws, don't make any mistakes. So Moore looks sharper statistically, but I think Allar's got the support system around him. And in a game like this, I think that could make the difference.
Penn State, 3.5-point home fave here on whiteout night, like we mentioned. The total is 51.5. The over minus 115. Nittany Lions minus 166 on the money line. Oregon coming back at plus 140. What do you like from a betting perspective for this one, Josie?
Well, just talking about him, the first thing I'm looking at is Drew Allar. He's averaging 208 passing yards and hasn't thrown more than 226 this season. So I'm not really expecting him to suddenly break that trend against one of the nation's top defenses. So that kind of feels unlikely. So I'm grabbing him at under 226 and a half passing yards. Again, Oregon's also just allowing 94 passing yards a game. Allar hasn't really been sharp lately. He completed just 55% of his passes against Villanova through his first pick. So that's why I'm kind of leaning more on Penn State's running game to bring him home here. From a game perspective, I'm taking the under. I go to 52 and a half. Again, Penn State does have the top scoring defense, even though those numbers do look a little less intimidating when you consider FIU as their toughest opponent. But, Penn State has hit the under in 3 of their last 4 bye games, so they are coming off a bye week. That's just a trend to keep an eye out of. I think their defensive depth is impressive. 6 players have at least 8 solo tackles. Meanwhile, Oregon's 2 top defenders sit at 7 solo tackles each. Again, I think both teams are facing a real test this week. I don't expect an offensive shootout here. Soft schedules, they have good defenses. I just like the under.
Just a heads up that both of these games, Oregon, Penn State, and Alabama, Georgia, are featured in DraftKings Games of the Week promo. So once you opt in, you'll get a single-use profit boost token to be used on one of these 2 games. It counts towards singles, parlays, and same-game parlays. Profit boost expires at the end of the games of the week, so make sure you take advantage of that promo. If you don't have an account at DraftKings, I will drop a link in the description. Alabama, Georgia, the other game here, Josie, both of these teams coming in off a bye. Last we saw Georgia, a bit of a scare from Tennessee, which we'll get into in a moment here. But who do you give that in off a bye week advantage to coming into this one?
I give the edge to Georgia simply because they're at home and they have that massive 33-game win streak. And I think a week off just kind of lets them fine-tune against Alabama, who's struggled on the road in the SEC environments lately. Just 2-3 straight up, 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 road games in the SEC. So going to give it to Georgia here.
I mean, you talk about Alabama there. It's not been great for Alabama under Kalen DeBoer. How hot does the head coaching hot seat get for him if Georgia absolutely blows Alabama out this week?
Yeah, the DeBoer era is so depressing at Alabama. Obviously, they failed to hit double-digit wins for the first time since 2007 last year. Their reputation in the SEC right now has kind of just been so quickly diminished, kind of like a mockery of upsets against Vanderbilt last year, losing to FSU in week 1. Like I said, I think their conference play is really concerning. I never thought I'd see a day where I'm questioning if Bama can handle their SEC schedule. It is big shoes to fill with Nick Saban. I'd like to say I'm pretty empathetic to that, but yeah, it's a sea of red flags right now.
Back to Georgia, Tennessee real quick. In that game, Joey Aguilar and Tennessee were able to rack up yards against this Georgia secondary, which looks to be a potential weak spot for this team. So considering the talent that Alabama does have in that wide receiver room, in that position, and what DeBoer sort of wants to do on offense, could we see more fireworks against this Georgia secondary?
Yeah, I think Alabama's passing attack could challenge Georgia's more effectively than Tennessee. The Volunteers did average nearly 300 passing yards per game, but Alabama's even more pass reliant with over 55% of their plays coming through the air. So I think the talent, Ryan Williams, I love that kid. It could create opportunities against the Bulldogs, but One thing I'll note is that Georgia ranks top 4 for time possession, so I think that could mean Ty Simpson and the Bama wide receivers will have fewer chances to maybe spark those fireworks and build on the momentum that they want to.
This one sitting at Georgia -3 at home, the total 52.5, under -112. Georgia -155 on the money line, Bama coming back at +130. What do you got for this one, Josie?
I'm leaning Georgia -2.5. I think the dogs are just a cheat code at home with that win streak. They control the clock, which is huge. They average, almost 200 rushing yards a game with 4 players contributing to that, including Gunnar Stockton. So it's kind of hard to slow that down. Their passing attack is really strong too. Zachariah Branch is averaging 16.5 yards per catch. Colby Young is a great backup option. He had almost 150 yards over his last 2 games. Again, Alabama struggled on the road. And this 2.5-point line is the lowest Georgia has seen in Athens since 2015 when they covered at 2.5 against Mississippi State. So I just feel like this is a really generous, good spot to catch the dogs this week.